I have a rule, which is always say yes until you have to say no. I'm going to explain it, but it gives you also the story on how I got to Wizard Academy. But first, it occurs to me that some people might be arriving in these videos and not know who I am. So my name is Daniel Whittington. I'm the Chancellor at Wizard Academy and Whiskey Marketing School. And I'm going to tell you a story. So first off, my rule. I find in life that the most interesting things happen when you simply say yes to things without needing to know anything else, as long as saying yes doesn't put you in a position you can't get out of if you need to. It has gotten me in trouble too. In 2013, I'm working on my recording studio. It's June. And I get a phone call a number I don't recognize. And the voice says, "Hey, you don't know me, but I got your number from your sister, who's friends with my wife. My name is Rex. My dad has a business school in South Austin. And he's been looking for somebody to run it. And I think you might be the guy." So I sort of sat there with the phone and was like, okay, who is this exactly? My name is Rex. We've met, but it turns out that he had been at a house party at my house and at some other gathering in public. And then I'd encountered him when he was on a date night with his wife. And yeah, I had no real recall of those things, but they made an impression, evidently. So I said, this doesn't make sense. Can we meet for coffee? So we met for coffee. We went to Starbucks, and he sat down and said, "Hey, my dad has this place. It's called Wizard Academy. It's a business school for entrepreneurs." And I went, hey, hang on. Wizard Academy. You said that like that's no big deal, but that's kind of a big deal. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Wizards? And he's like, no, it's just a name. They're a business school for entrepreneurs. And so he talked to me about touring and music, and I think trying to feel out whether I was going to like take a gig and then bail the first time a good touring opportunity landed in my lap. What he didn't know is the story that I told you in the last video, which was I was tired and I'd gotten off the road for a reason. And I wasn't sure what I was going to do next. And so he said, well, hey, or I asked, can I just meet Roy, your dad? Could he maybe tell me what's going on? And he said, sure, what are you doing right now? And I said, well, I guess I'm doing this. So I followed him out, 20-minute drive down through the hill country, and we ended on this property, and we walk into the building that is soon to become Alchemy, and upstairs to a conference room, and on one side of the table are Roy and Penny and Corrine Taylor. And I sit down and I realize this isn't just sort of an informal hangout. This is a job interview. And I wasn't totally prepared for a job interview. I was just saying, yes, sure, why not? You want to get coffee, talk about it? Sure, why not? You want to go meet Roy and Penny right now? Sure, why not? I mean, what's the worst that could happen? I mean, I guess, if you're driving through the hills to a place called Wizard Academy, there may be some other things that could happen I should have anticipated, but none of them did, so I'm still here. I sit down because, musician, improv, hey, just figure it out. And so I sat down and they started asking me questions. And we talked for, 45 minutes or so. They asked a bunch of different things. Poking at me, I think the same way that Rex was. Is this just a musician who's going to bail as soon as he gets a new cool gig? And after about an hour, Roy says, hey, Penny, are you done with your questions? She said, yeah. And he said, Daniel, why don't you take a walk with me? Which, if you know Roy, is a very famous sentence. And we spent the next, I think, 3 or 4 hours walking around this campus with Roy showing me around and talking about this place. And I just kind of went along for it because always say yes till you have to say no. But first, let's talk about the whiskey. This is Wathen's. This is the Medley brothers. If you know your basic bourbon history, this is a company that revived a bourbon brand from Charles Medley, and it's actually family members of that, and they're sourcing their bourbon, and they have a lot of control over how it's being made and aged and things like that. This is the different label, and now they're putting the barrel numbers on the top of the bottles. This is barrel 7740. hand bottled, evidently, on March 27th of 2020, and now here. So I've always found with Wathens that there's a really strong sort of cut grass, dusty corn note to their bourbon, or at least to this line. Not necessarily the Medley Brothers, but it does have the, butterscotch and the caramels and the soft vanilla and oak tannins, but it's way heavier on the grain impact. It just, for lack of a better term, it smells a little grain forward. And I kind of always get that from these. I don't know how old this is, but I mean, it sounds like I don't like it. It's nice, but it is a grain forward bourbon nose for me. Like you can smell the mash. There's a little bit of herbal botanical and a little bit of mint, but it's mostly just got that sort of vanilla cream and bourbon caramel and oak tannin. I like the palate more than I like the nose. The palate has that sort of rolling molasses and chocolate cherry, and it's really light because it's only, 94 proof? Yeah, but it lingers, and it's got oil, and I like that. It's not just washy and thin. It's got a little bit, it's kind of a nice rolling palate. Nose still a little botanical, a little grassy, but okay. It's okay. I like Texas bourbon. So I like that really dark, rich, heavy, and this is more on the lighter grain sort of Kentucky direction. Anyway, it's good. It's a decent single barrel. I wish it was barrel strength when they released it single barrel, but yeah, as the famous philosopher Jagger said, you can't always get what you want. So I get home from walking around with Will Williams all over this campus for 3 or 4 hours, and by the time I get home, it's dinner. And I walk into the house, and I'm asked, so what the heck do they do out there? And I said, I have no idea. I mean, I'm pretty sure, and I told her the same things I was told. It's a business school. They train entrepreneurs, I guess. I don't know how or what's happening, and then she said, well, what did they offer you? And I was like, well, they were hiring for a job called vice chancellor, which I had to look up online, and it's evidently just like vice president, but it's an educational term. So, but as far as I can figure, it's operations. Like they just want me to run the place and run the classes and run the buildings. And she said, well, do you want to do it? And I said, you know what? I think I do, actually. I think I do. And I don't know why. I couldn't put a finger on it. But saying yes at each stage of the process had led me to this moment where I'm standing on this campus and thinking, you know what? I have no idea what's going on here or what they're trying to accomplish entirely. But it feels like if they offer me a chance to be a part of it, I should just say yes and then hope that I can figure out what I'm doing before they fire me. But what do I have to lose, really? If I say yes to this right now, there are no contracts. There's just sort of a verbal agreement of an idea of like, hey, you're going to come work here, right? And they actually hadn't offered me the job. But I thought, if they did, I'm going to take it. And so she said, well, when did they offer you the job? I said, no, actually they didn't. They just said, we'll talk later. And she said, well, how are they going to reach you and when? I said, I have no idea, but they got me the first time. So I'm assuming they'll email me. And sure enough, 2 weeks later, Penny sent me an email and said, would you like to come back out and talk? And I came back out. I went back upstairs to that corner room. And I sat down across from Roy and Penny. And Roy said, so I told everyone else that the position was filled. So are you in or what? and I said, yeah, sure, yes, I'm in. And then I said, I can't start for a couple of weeks because I'm finishing some stuff, but he's like, that's fine. And then I said, what exactly am I doing? And he said, oh, it's going to take you 6 months to figure that out. And I said, okay. And I got up to leave and I went, oh, wait, what does it pay? And he named a number and I went, all right, that sounds good. I'll see you in a couple of weeks, I guess. And that's how I got to Wizard Academy. So over and over and over in my life, some of the best things that have ever happened to me have come from me saying yes to something without needing to know any of the details or the whys, just because in my gut I felt like I need to say yes to this thing until I can learn more. And then I keep saying yes until I'm forced to say no or make a crossroads decision, and then I follow my gut. So my advice to you is, anytime opportunity presents itself, or there's a situation or someone emails and says, hey, you want to hang out? Or hey, you want to meet and talk? Just say yes. Worst thing that happens is you hang out and have a good talk with somebody. Or maybe you'll end up a wizard. Cheers to you. Thank you for watching. I'm really glad you're here.